It's Friday morning on Buckeye Breakdown, and that means one thing. We are 24 hours to kick off, and it's our preview and prediction show. Ohio State and Indiana opening up the 2023 season Saturday at 3:30 in Bloomington. What do we want to see from the Buckeyes, aside from the obvious, starting the season with a convincing win? We'll dive into it next on Buckeye Breakdown. We've got the whole crew together as we cover Ohio State with our instant analysis from Ohio State.
There's something that doesn't feel right.
Unbelievable effort from him today. Is E.J. Liddell going to crack the first team All Big Ten?
I think he can be the guy. I'm not trying to start a quarterback controversy.
He seems to have the durability. He certainly has the toughness. This is the question on a lot of people's minds here. Welcome to Buckeye Breakdown. Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Buckeye Breakdown, our Friday morning edition, streaming live on YouTube every morning at 7 a.m. As we get ready for Ohio State to open up the 2023 regular season. If you're listening after the fact, wherever you like to find your favorite podcast, that's great too. Of course, we're affiliated with Buckeyes Now on Sports Illustrated, the SI Media Group with the Fan Nation Network. BuckeyesNow.com is your home for all the latest news and info for the team. I'm Brendan Gulick, Anthony Moeglin along with me as we get ready for a big game tomorrow because it's the next game. They're all big when you only have so many of them at. And it's pretty cool, the fact that, you wake up this morning and you say, gosh, it's felt like football season is here because we've watched other teams play for the last, 2 weeks, if you think about some high school ball too. But it is finally time to see the Scarlet and Gray go back and chase that national title again.
Yeah, it's really officially back. Last night we had some Big Ten action, which was a lot of fun to watch, which I know we're going to dive into here.
Was it fun to watch, though?
I don't know that it was fun to watch. Now that you say that, you're right. It was a little bit of watching paint dry in Minnesota last night. But you had Florida and Utah. That was a fun game. So just seeing the action, and you wake up this morning, there's a chill in the air. And I know that you're looking forward to getting over to Bloomington along with the rest of Buckeye Nation. So it'll be a fun 32-ish hours here coming up. It's we finally made it.
NC State beat UConn. To your point, the Utah-Florida game was actually pretty fun to watch. Big long scoring play on the opening drive or opening play of the game for Utah, which was cool. Nebraska and Minnesota was a really tough watch. 3-0 at halftime. In fact, I'm looking here. I think same story, different year. With 5 minutes to go in the game, Nebraska's win probability was 94%, and even 2 minutes later, with 2:30 to go in the game, their win probability was 86%, and they lost in regulation, as Nebraska has seemingly perfected finding ways to lose games. They throw an interception late, gave up a really impressive toe tap touchdown and then a field goal as time expired. And Minnesota rides off into the sunset with a season opening win, sending Matt Rule back to Lincoln with an 0-1 record.
Yeah. It's just a tough, some of those, we'll call it old school style Big Ten games where it's just not a lot of action, not a lot of points, not something we're accustomed to watching anymore at Ohio State. But yeah, I guess you had that one highlight play where they had the double pass back and forth. It was almost disaster, where it was a little bit of a fumble and then a touchdown. But
it was an unmitigated disaster that turned in unbelievably lucky. But
yes,
whatever. It was fun to watch. The ball certainly bounced the right way on that play. So, I think a lot of people are hoping the ball's going to bounce the right way for the Scarlet and Gray throughout the course of the season and certainly this weekend. I think it's a little nicer this year than it's been the last couple, because I don't feel the same kind of stress and tension that I feel, going into this year's opener. And maybe some of it is simply just that it's Indiana. I'm not trying to be, offensive or play down to the Hoosiers, but Ohio State's roster is substantially more talented, even though Indiana, I think, will be a little better than they were last year. I also anticipate that there's probably going to be some times in the first half of this game where it might look a little clunky. I don't think you're going to see a high-powered, high-octane, Ohio State offense just thrashing Indiana right from the outset. It could happen, but recent history would tell me that's less likely just because it's the first game of the season. And, it takes a little while for everybody to just kind of like settle into things. Maybe a little easier to be a defensive guy early in the year. So, it's not a crazy stressful opener. And, I expect Ohio State to play well.
Yeah, and I think too, Brendan, that coming off of last year where it was top of the, it was you're playing Notre Dame, it's a top 10 matchup to start. And really, you make a really good point there from an offensive perspective. It's hard to it's always clunky. Like this isn't significant to just Ohio State. You watch USC a couple nights ago. There was some growing pains, if you will, just making sure everything's on the same page. And it's really challenging from on the offensive side, because to be successful on offense, like 11 guys have to execute every single play. It doesn't on the defensive side. You could have 9 breakdowns, but a cornerback makes a really sweet play and picks the ball off, and it's a successful play for the team, and everyone's all happy. But there was 9 missed assignments on that play, in theory. On offense, if you have even 1 missed assignment, the play's blown up every single time. So it's really a challenge, especially early on in the year, to establish that chemistry. I've touched on it throughout the week, how big chemistry is and how big it is that Ohio State was kind of bringing a lot of competitions into this week. So expect some growing pains. Don't expect it to look flawless at the start. And then also know that the big play is right around the corner. I think that kind of gets lost when you're discussing a new quarterback and you're discussing some of the things we have. You're one slant to Marvin Harrison away from 7 points, 6 points, or you're one go ball to Emeka Egbuka away from lighting up the scoreboard. So that's going to happen. Don't expect it to look maybe like a finished product early on Saturday, because let's be frank about it, it's not, and there's going to be a lot of things that the guys got to work through, and that's common across the board. That's common across every program in the country.
So in this show, I think we'd like to each kind of work through, 3 things we'd really like to see this weekend that, they can be as bold or not bold as you'd like, as you're talking about different things, but just where your attention is. And then, we'll give a final score prediction at the end. I think we did have one area, a little bit of crossover. Maybe mine's a bit more specific, but as it relates to defensive backs, I want to see Denzel Burke play really well. I think there is a serious need for his resurgence, and it sounds like he's had a really good camp. He certainly he seems confident, so that's just a big first step. He admitted last year was not great. He had a solid freshman year for sure, and then the sophomore season definitely slumped off. So Denzel Burke is going to be a huge key in that defensive backfield. I think the Buckeyes have got to find a way to be able to lean on him.
I agree. And we talked a lot yesterday about what they're going to face. And I think this is a great test, not only for Denzel Burke, but for the rest of the secondary. And we touched a little bit on Sonny Styles earlier in the week, but the rest of the crew, Josh Proctor, Jordan Hancock, Denzel Burke, I think it's really important with the way that last season ended that these guys look the part and they look good. And this is a really good test to do so, right? You got some explosive plays that are going to be happening from the Indiana side of the ball. But this is a big group of receivers, like large dudes who are going to be able to make plays over the top. And you want to see Ohio State and this defensive backfield be in the correct position, not once or twice, but be in the correct position at all times, because I think it's very, very important for the psyche of this defense to not give up that big play. And a lot of those big plays last year and those explosive plays just came from broken down coverage. You think back to the Michigan game, you got guys running wide open down the field, not within 10 yards. There's no corner within 10 yards or no defensive player within 10, 15 yards. And you just don't want to see that. You don't want to be up 49-0 and then have one of those. And then it's like, uh-oh, we're back. We're back to those bad thoughts and those bad things. So I think that I agree with you that it's a big emphasis on Denzel Burke tomorrow. Just look good, look the part, be in the right position, make great plays. We don't need pick sixes. Just knock the ball down and make a tackle if you give up a catch.
Absolutely. All right. I let off. You jump in next.
Yeah, the one thing that I want to really focus on the offensive side of the ball, we've talked about the receivers, we've talked about the running backs. One thing that I'm just going to have my eye on, I don't think it's going to be a game-changing factor, but I want to see how the tight ends look. I think Cade Stover played a significant role, maybe not statistically last year. Came in 36 catches, 406 yards, 5 touchdowns. So really high production, especially when you get down in like the red area. I think that he was, especially getting low towards the end zone, he was a guy that was a red zone target. So I'm really curious to see how they use him because it is so hard at Ohio State. You got guys everywhere that need the football, and you can make arguments that everyone should get a target on every single play. And I think Cade Stover is such a key component of the Ohio State offense with the way that we run the football and how effective that is. But also timely catches. A quarterback's best friend is a tight end. That's true with veteran guys. That's especially true with guys who haven't played before. And that's what you're going to get with Kyle McCord and Devin Brown is that, hey, your security blanket is going to be your tight end. So I'm really looking forward to seeing not only how they use Cade Stover, but the improvements that he's made and where he's going to make his impact on this Ohio State offense. I think he's going to be a nice little key to see how far I think this offense can go.
It doesn't sound like a bold take anymore, but 2 years ago, before these two guys had really burst on the scene, I was so excited to watch Cade Stover and Tommy Eichenberg play because they were quickly becoming my favorite Buckeyes. They have the it factor that not a lot of guys have. And I'm not even the least bit surprised to see they're both named captain this year, along with Xavier Johnson, who also certainly has some of that it factor. But God, Tommy and Cade are they're old school, grizzled guys cut from a different cloth. And they don't talk a lot and they don't need to. And they want to go out and hit you. And it's sure, coach, whatever you need. I don't care where it is. Just let me go play. I love watching those two guys play, and I hope Cade Stover has a monster year. It's pretty cool. They're both back.
And I would add, too, that they are the kind of guys that change a locker room and really improve, I guess, morale of a locker room and something that is really important when you're talking about a team. Like, hey, we know that we're going to get Cade's best. And when you're on the other side of the ball, you're going to get Tommy's best. And that's not on Saturday. That's on Monday in the weight room. That's on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at practice. That's on Fridays at walkthrough. You're going to get these guys best. And that not only improves their individual game, but it also puts a sense of urgency on the rest of the team. Like, we don't want to let these guys down because we know what Tommy sacrificed. We know what Cade sacrificed. It's a huge boost for the team. They're guys that they're just football guys through and through. The kind that you want to coach, the kind that you want to play with, and the kind that you want to root for on our side. I'm really excited about that.
Second thing I have on my list here is that I really want to see Ohio State take care of the ball. 1 turnover max. I don't care if it's a fumble or an interception. Essentially, you're going on the road to open the season. And the reality is there's going to be a lot of talk about quarterback play because that's been the hot story in the offseason. The rest of this roster is absolutely loaded and coming back, and they have goals of winning a national championship. And they seem realistic. If they can stay healthy and they get steady quarterback play, that's a realistic goal for sure. They can absolutely win the national title this year. Let's just see how they look. And I don't know. I'm not willing to pound my fist on the table quite yet until I actually see some results. But what I'm trying to get at is you have to go on the road and take care of business and recognize that, you're expected to execute at a place like Indiana. It's not a game that should be very close. Mm-hmm. Whether or not you cover the spread is irrelevant. Just figure out a way to go and look the part. And part of that is don't turn the ball over.
Exactly. And a lot of turnovers early in the year, especially, are self-inflicted. You don't want to see bad decision-making by whoever's playing quarterback. Make sure there's no balls in danger. We always talked about that in my coaching days. You can watch the tape on Saturday, and not every incompletion's created the same, not every touchdown's created the same, but not every interception's created the same. There could be a situation where a ball gets tipped, whatnot, whatever, but you want to make sure that there's no balls in danger. So making sure we're making good decisions. And then, from carrying the football, you just don't want to see any slop, right? You got veteran guys. There's everyone who's going to touch the ball tomorrow is going to be a veteran guy who's done it before, who's been in the end zone before, who's made catches before. Let's just be clean. And I couldn't agree more. There's no reason for turning the rock over. So I agree with you on that standpoint, making it a clean afternoon of offensive football.
All right, number 2 for you.
Number 2 for me, we touched on the big plays a little bit ago, but I want to see a full containment of Jalen Lucas. I'm from a fan perspective, I'm curious to see how Indiana uses him. So it'll be fun to watch. They're going to have him. He's going to be returning kickoffs, so that'll be interesting to see. He's going to be used in different places around the offense. It'll be really important to see the Ohio State defense adjust to where he's at. If he's in the backfield, making sure that we're containing everything in there. If he's in the slot on the other side, if he's on the outside, just making sure that we keep those big plays down. Because like I said a little bit ago, once one happens, you just don't want that to get back into it. I believe someone said it. I believe it was Xavier Johnson said it the other day in his presser. The question was, how do you know when you've solved the big plays? And it was when they don't happen anymore. And I think that is a great goal to have, making sure that nothing big happens, at any level of defense. So excited to see how the Buckeyes contain Jalen Lucas from all the hype that he's had. And I think, it's going to be a really good test for the Bucs.
I said number 2. Was that number 3? You mentioned Cade Stover, you mentioned DBs, you mentioned Jalen Lucas. Am I just losing my mind?
Maybe that is 3. I think that could be number 3. It doesn't matter. I think that big plays and Jalen Lucas in the secondary all kind of loop together. So we'll give that my number 2.
Okay, sounds good. Last thing I wanted to touch on was, this is not something we've mentioned at all week, and it's not necessarily related, as specific to this game, but we are officially starting the season now. Where Ohio State's seniors are well, I guess they're a mix. This is the upperclassmen here are Ryan Day's first recruiting class. Mm-hmm. Cal McCord, and Jack Sawyer were obviously his first 2 signees in that class. That class at the time was like the 5th highest rated class ever signed, and so the combination of, who is coming in and the hype around them justifiably made for exceptionally high expectations. Mm-hmm. And I think in a lot of ways, the Buckeyes have met those. They just haven't gotten a national championship out of it yet. And they haven't beaten Michigan the last 2 years. Mm-hmm. And so the question is like, okay, have you achieved your goals? In fact, last night I did a local radio hit in Cleveland and was asked about, if Ohio State doesn't win the national championship, is the season a failure? I hate the all or nothing expectation in college athletics, especially that Ohio State places on itself. I think it's a little too aggressive to just say, well, we didn't win the national title, it's a failure. Mm-hmm. But, they talk about, hey, look, last year, we didn't achieve 2 of our 3 goals, right? They didn't beat Michigan. They made the college football playoff, but they did not win the national championship. The year before that, they didn't achieve any of them. They lost to Michigan, and they never even got to the playoff, despite a Rose Bowl win that, I don't think Ohio State fans will ever forget. So I think there is an onus on, that group of guys that Ryan Day brought in that recruiting class to go out and set the tone for the season. Mm-hmm. And I expect that they're going to do that. I don't have any doubts that they will, but I think the spotlight's a little brighter. And, you even heard somebody like Mike Hall talk about it this week and say, look, when someone said, hey, have we seen the best of you? What's that look like? And so on and so forth. He didn't really want to say a whole lot. It was basically just, you'll see this week. We're pretty laser focused on what's in front of us. And for a couple of the comments I've gotten on social media that, if the Bucks win the national championship but lose to Michigan, then it's not an unsuccessful season. I don't know if you'll convince the players of that. I'm just going to leave it at that.
It's an immense amount of pressure to have all the time, and I think that's very challenging, and that's the standard at Ohio State. Whether that's right, wrong, or indifferent is up for argument, but it's just an immense amount of pressure to walk around with every single day, because one slip up, and the way that I also think the way that the playoff is created is that it's one slip up and your season's a failure, and then your 4 years at Ohio State's a failure, or 4 or 5, this class. So it is it's just an immense amount of pressure, and I think that this team is up for it. I think that this kind of loops into my last point that I wanted to touch on, and that's the quarterback play. But it all ties back together because of what the standard is at Ohio State. It's beat Michigan, and Michigan isn't the Michigan of the last 15 or the majority of the last 15 years where they've been a little bit down. This is a legit team. Penn State's a legit team. I don't think Wisconsin's going to be there quite yet, but they're going to be good. You don't want to slip up there. You don't want to slip up anywhere. And starting tomorrow will be a really good look at how this team is prepared, what their attitude is. It's going to be, I think it's going to be a very businessman-like attitude where they go in, hopefully take care of what they got to take care of and get out of Dodge and get back home for the next group. So I agree with you. This is it's an exciting time for this last group, or for this Ryan did this recruiting class, because this is really their last chance to go at it. So I think that's a great point. It ties back into the last point that I want to touch on. And I just want to see how the quarterbacks respond. I think you're going to learn a lot about each of the guys, especially Kyle McCord early. How is he responding? How does he respond to a little bit of adversity? Is what I'm really interested in. If there is a 3-and-out, if there is a situation where, maybe there is a turnover, how is he going to respond to that? And then on the flip side, how is Devin Brown going to take advantage of whatever reps he gets, whenever that may be? Coach Day mentioned that he's going to get meaningful snaps against some of the starters and in when the game's still a game. So that'll be interesting to see how he comes out, how he deals with that. But I'm really curious to see how Kyle McCord looks, and just in terms of playing the position, and then how he responds to any type of adversity that he's going to face tomorrow, because it's inevitable. You're going to face some downs tomorrow. How do you respond, and how do you continue to push forward?
So excited to watch Ohio State get out there and get after it tomorrow. And maybe some of it too is because there's really only a couple other games around the country that are expected to be, high energy, really good games. There's only one matchup around the country where two ranked teams are playing against each other, and it should be a good game. Florida State and LSU. North Carolina, South Carolina could be good. West Virginia, Penn State could be a good game. But I think everybody's kind of looking forward to just like, okay, let's get back into it. And whether you're playing a conference opponent or not, see if you can go out and make a good first impression. With that, it's time to figure out, okay, what is your final score prediction? I've got one written down here that I've been noodling on all week. You want to go first? Or you want to go second?
Yeah, I'll go first here.
Okay.
I think early in the week when we've discussed it, you and I kind of off air in between shows, it's a lot. There's a lot of points to cover. I don't know how it's going to be. And then after learning a lot about the Indiana team, I think Ohio State's going to be just in fine shape. I think that they're going to be able to run the football, and you're going to have big plays. And I think on defense, if all things go well, I think we're going to be able to stop everything Indiana's trying to do. So I don't think it's going to be close as I did earlier in the week. So my final score prediction, 52-10, Buckeyes. Get up early and often, get the starters out, get everyone back to Columbus safely, and get some of those young guys a chance to get in, score some points, and then tack on a field goal somewhere in between. So 52-10 is what I'm thinking.
52-10. I see a couple in the comments here, 49-10, 56-14. It's obvious that nobody thinks this game's going to be particularly tight. I don't either, but I am actually picking Ohio State not to cover the spread. I think it's going to be a 41-14 game. There's just something about season openers that I've seen enough of where it feels a little clunky. And I don't know if that means, turnovers. I even think back to C.J. Stroud's first start at Minnesota. He threw some balls over the middle of the field that were high incompletions that sailed over receivers' heads, or, ultimately they were a little bit dangerous. But he certainly wasn't the C.J. Stroud that looked like he could win the Heisman Trophy. Certainly 2 months into his first year, and from that point forward. So I don't know. I have high expectations for Kyle McCord and certainly for Devin Brown when he gets in there. I just don't know if it's going to be a 50 burger or whatever against Indiana right out of the gate. Certainly not, not that they are capable of it, but I am prone to think it's going to be a little bit tighter than that.
Yeah, it certainly could be. We've seen it before. You mentioned, I remember that CJ Stroud game. Everyone was kind of calling for his head afterwards against Minnesota. And thankfully, Ryan Day has a long leash, especially with these young guys. Let them learn. It's a learning process. See how it goes. But 41-14, I don't hate it. I don't hate it at all. I'm on the flip side. I have them covering the spread and potentially going over in points if you kind of caught my drift there. So that's what I think. 52-10 is my guess. 41-14, George. We'll see. We'll see who's right.
What we can do. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we got a ton of coverage planned for you all weekend long. Please go to BuckeyesNow.com. We've got a bunch of stuff from this week, and we will have a ton over the next 48 hours leading up to, and then certainly in the immediate aftermath of the game. I'll be in Bloomington on site. Anthony will be covering from home. We'll do a quick pregame, hit, at some point tomorrow. I'm not entirely sure when. It'll depend a little bit upon, what the setup looks like in Bloomington. And then we will certainly be at and stream live the post-game press conference. And then we'll do a podcast after the game is over. Our pregame hit might be a little bit quicker, but it'll be, some sort of connection with your pregame. But we'll have a post-game show that, we'll break down just the immediate reaction of what we thought and felt and saw. And then Sunday morning, we'll dive in with maybe a little bit more level head and give you more of a what we learned style show before we get into next week's coverage. So a lot coming on our video side. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's the best way to support us. That'd be great. You can find us on social media as well at BuckeyesNow_FN. Again, part of the Sports Illustrated Media Group and the Fan Nation Network. So we'll see you in Bloomington tomorrow. For Anthony Moeglin, I'm Brendan Gulick. It's Friday. The Buckeyes play tomorrow afternoon. Can't wait. 3:30 kickoff over in Bloomington. See you then.